starting yet. But I'm here to warm up the crowd. So my name is Star. I am the director of this amazing library. And I want to let everybody know that this is Library Card Sign-Up Month. September is Library Card Sign-Up Month. So you'll all be required to present your library card to leave before you leave tonight. So, if you need to get one, we have lovely staff at the desk that will help you out in that regard. Anyway, I just wanted to welcome everybody and thank you for coming out on this gorgeous evening tonight, where we can see this mountain out of these beautiful windows. And I want to be sure, for those of you who haven't met her yet, I want to introduce you to our wonderful programming and outreach specialist who put this program together tonight with Wyndham World Affairs, and that is Tara O'Brien. So, give it up.
Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to welcome you to Brooks Memorial Library, and I'm actually a year into this position. And if there's any kind of programs you want, please come see me, because I really, we do try to tailor our programs to the needs of the community. And so if there's anything that you want to produce, or if there's something that you want to see here, please do not hesitate to respond. There are some feedback forms that usually are here on the seats, but I actually just put them on the table tonight. So if you kindly fill out a feedback form afterwards, then we can get your opinions about how successful you think this program is. And it also helps us with getting grant funding, because we use your comments in our grant applications. So it's really important that you give back to us in that way. We don't ask much from you, but that is really appreciated. And so just some announcements tonight. If you have a cell phone, we ask that you just shut your cell phones off at this moment. Restrooms are underneath that big green sign. Those are open, they're not locked. The ones on the second floor are locked. You need to stop at the children's room to use those, and open them for you. Another announcement, that not only is it, one more important announcement, exit. So at the event that anyone needs to use the emergency exit, it is the main exit. There is an exit this way also. And then it is Library Sign-Up Month, and it is also Hispanic Heritage Month. And you can see that we have some beautiful portraits along the walls that are on loan from us from the University of Vermont that have electronic stories that accompany them. So there's a QR code that you can get by the door, and you can listen to some of these really inspiring stories of our newest Americans who make this our home and retain their cultures and share them with us all. It's really a powerful exhibit. Some more programs coming up. We are on next week, on Wednesday. The America 250 Planning Working Group is meeting here. We meet at the fourth Wednesdays of the month in the community room, and people who are planning things for America 250, which this is one of our programs. So that happens. So if you want to get involved, everyone is welcome to those meetings. Happens on the fourth Wednesday of the month from 6 o'clock. After our planning meeting, we have a special guest, the biographer of Ira Allen's newest book on Ira Allen by Kevin Graffinino, who's coming to speak to us here in the main reading room. Looks to be a very engaging program, and it's also another part of the America 250 series that we're co-sponsoring with Wyndham World Affairs. Another program with a 50 in it, Brattleboro area source of resources, is that Paul Schulich, who co-founded New Chapter, is coming here at the end of the month on September 27th. He's going to share some tidbits and some of his sage advice from his 50 years working in the field of non-traditional medicines. Everyone's welcome to that. That's happening in the community room also. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to Susan Healy from the Wyndham World Affairs Council, who co-sponsors this program with us. And again, please fill out your feedback, because that informs us on what kind of program we can offer you. Thank you so much.
Can I have that one, Tara? No better. Is that on? Okay. So, yes, I'm Susan Healy, Outreach Coordinator for Wyndham World Affairs Council. And this is actually the third in a series of town halls that Meg has done for us as a part of the America 250. So, we've already talked about next Wednesday's session. It would be great to have people to talk about how to move forward with that program. And on your seat is just a little tiny flyer. Many of you can't read anything that's on there, but there is a QR code that can bring you to bigger print. If you're still not happy with QR code technology, you can just go to our website, wyndhamworldaffairscouncil.org, and you will see the next series of events in addition to the America 250. Our annual Galbraith lecture is on October 8th at Center Congregational Church. That will start out with a cocktail and hors d'oeuvre reception. And I have to tell you, we worked for about a year and a half. We thought we had Robert Reich coming to speak because he was John Kenneth Galbraith's mentee. And he put out a Substack, in 2024 called My Mentor. And I immediately got in touch with him, asked Peter Galbraith if he thought it was okay. Chuck Collins is a friend of his, and he said yes. He said yes for 2025, but that was in 2024. And a lot happened that changed his schedule. So instead of coming here, he will be delivering an open message to honor John Kenneth Galbraith, but that will be delivered virtually. Still, it promises to be a good event with Peter speaking on all the hot spots in the world today. So, and John Ungerleider will be the moderator. John is a peace builder, and he is currently, John, where are you? He is the director of the Greater Falls Community Justice Center and a valued member of the Wyndham World Affairs Council membership. Then on October 19th, it's actually the Sunday of Lit Fest, and we'll just piggyback at the end of Lit Fest at 1:18. We're going to be showing a film, a very short film. It's only 37 minutes, and it's called From Sea to Shining Sea, The Story of America the Beautiful by Catherine Lee Bates. And it's this really wonderful film that is a tribute to her belief that true patriotism embraces social justice, shared beauty, and collective responsibility. And that will be followed by a Q&A with the filmmaker John DeGraff. So, and then finally on October 26th, we're gonna have another community screening. This one will be at the Latches, also to be followed by a Q&A with the filmmakers. And that film is called Borderland, The Line Within, and it's an acclaimed documentary that explores the border industrial complex, the system that's profiting from immigrant exploitation, presented through the personal stories of activists and data visualizations. So that's 5 p.m. at the Latches on October 26th. Finally, to tonight's event. I think most of us here know Meg Mott. She's a former political theory professor from Marlborough College and Emerson in Boston, and she currently serves as the Putney Town Meeting moderator. Since the 2016 presidential election, Meg has turned her attention to improving public debate between progressives and conservatives. That was a mission she started in 2016. In 2025, that's now more important than ever. So we're real excited to have her having reinvented her Debating Our Rights series for this America 250 Town Hall program, which we call Examining American Identity and Leadership in a Changing World. So Meg will now talk to us about what the Constitution means to us. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Susan. Thank you.
Sorry. One last thing, there is a sign-up sheet if anybody is not on the Wyndham World Affairs Council mailing list if you'd like to get our newsletter. Thanks.
Great. All right, well, let's get started. We've got people. We've got a public library. Oh, does anybody have a Constitution? Because it is the birthday of the Constitution. I told people I would get my hat out of my eyes when we actually began, so people can see me. Today is the birthday of the Constitution. Anybody know how many years old it is? What? I didn't hear that, Terry. You don't want to say that's not the right number. What? Anybody want to guess? 238. Who said that? Yes, thank you very much. Because what's the 250th next year? Is that the Constitution? No, what is it?
Independence.
Declaration of Independence. Okay, this is a strong audience. I'm feeling very good about this. All you need is, for a republic, is a public library. I think a public library is very important for a republic. That's where people come in. Nobody's forced to come in. You get to take whatever book you want. You can look at a book that you don't like, and you don't burn it. You just let it be on the shelf, and then maybe you try another book, and you read it, and you think, I thought it was going to be great. I read about it in the New York Times. I'm actually disappointed. And then you take it back, and you find a book that you want. That's kind of the lovely thing about living in a republic. We get to have our own ideas. We get to do things our own way. Now, maybe you know this song. I can't sing. My sister's here, but she knows how to sing. Maybe she'll help me out. Here's a little line. So on and so on and Scooby-Dooby-Doo. Ba-ba. We got to live together. Do you know this song? Everyday People, Sly and the Family Stone. But, before we get to the Constitution, you know I love the Constitution. But I think Sly and the Family Stone pretty much gave us everything we needed. Okay, I'm not going to sing. I can't sing. My sister could do this really well, and she's here. But sometimes I'm right, and I can be wrong. My own beliefs are in my song. The butcher, the baker, the drummer, and then makes no difference what group I'm in. I am everyday people. Too bad I have the mic. Yes. Start.
And I just want everybody to know Sly Stone played on Flat Street.
When?
A long time ago.
It's time to start the pilgrimage. This is a very important place, and Terry's going to tell us about how Frederick Douglass was around here. There's a very important place. Okay, I got to just give you just a couple of other lines from Sly. There is a long hair that doesn't like the short hair for being such a rich one that will not help the poor one. And what's the response? Different strokes for different folks. And so on and so on and Scooby-Dooby-Dooby. Okay, if we can get back into the Sly attitude, I'm actually feeling pretty good about this country. I think if you're having a bad time with the screens and you're just getting all upset about things, sing a little Sly and the Family Stone. It might put a little spring in your step. Because I don't want to minimize how this is a very difficult time. And we won't stay away from controversy. You've been to any of my talks before. You know I love a good controversy. I'm going to encourage people to say things that may be a position that you don't often hear in Windham County. Good. And maybe somebody's going to say something that somebody else will say, I actually don't like that. And then maybe just remember, different strokes for different folks. That's all you gotta do. Like, just bring a little sly in. If you feel yourself like, ooh, I don't know about that. Although I've done more controversial topics, I usually think I do my most controversial topic may have been the grants pass discussion. We had the Supreme Court decision around homeless encampments, and that, you know, people had a lot of things to say about it, and there were very different perspectives. And tonight, it may not be about a specific topic. It might be about the idea that we can actually live together. That may be the controversial piece that I'll keep throwing out there. Maybe we'll have to live together. Okay, but enough with Sly and the Family Stone. Anybody have a birthday today? Anybody have a birthday this week? A birthday this week? Okay, I brought you a constitution. Can some of you pass that back? What's your name? Elizabeth. Okay, happy birthday, Elizabeth. Anybody else have a birthday in the vicinity? I got 2 constitutions to give away. Oh, Deb. You look like a Virgo. Are you a Virgo? September 10th. Okay. It's always good to have your constitution with you. So I'd like to start, and then we're going to get into some bigger deals, but before I ask you the big question, which is what would you want to get rid of, and what would you want to hold on to, and I will confess, if you don't say certain things, I might cry in what you want to keep. I'll be okay with a lot over here, although I worked with some, this was at the Putney Public Library, Julia. You may remember, the free speech camp. So I let these middle school, high schoolers decide what they wanted to keep and what they didn't. And some of them took a match to it. It was an interactive camp. It was totally like William Lloyd Garrison, burn the and so I'm not going to give this one away because it's kind of precious to me. So, but I did tell the students there were certain things that they could not take out of the Constitution or I would just self-immolate. And that got their attention. So I'm hoping that you guys are going to agree with me. Otherwise, I don't think I'll self-immolate tonight. But this is the hill I'm planning to die on, is that if there's certain things you want to get out of the take out of the Constitution, I might be very, very sad about. But we can talk, oh, sorry. So I'm going to hope that we have some common ground here. But I'm going to try different strokes for different folks. I'm going to keep that in mind. So I said it was 238 years old. It's the oldest constitution in the universe. By a lot. Does anybody know what the average time span, lifespan is of a constitution on the planet Earth? That means average. Everybody got their math skills? It's like the totality divided by that number. What's the average? Anybody want to guess?
57.
57. What's your name? Deb. 57. Allison said 50. Is Deb right? No. You're shaking your head. I forget your name.
You don't know my name.
But I've seen you before. What's your name?
Phil.
Phil. Yeah, I knew that.
5 years.
You say 5 years. Oh, pessimistic, but more accurate than Deb. 12. What's your name? Nancy. Nancy's very close. It's 17. The average age, the average lifespan of the Constitution on the planet Earth is 17 years, and we have 238. So I'd just like to put that in perspective. And maybe you know this is a library joke, maybe you know this joke. And the joke is a Brit, and I'll try and do a little accent. A Brit goes into a library and he goes, "Excuse me, may I see the French Constitution?" And the librarian says, "We do not have periodicals." Okay, that's a little hard on the French, but they made a point. We have no periodicals. We do not carry periodicals. So I got a little American pride around this, 238 years that we've had this Constitution. But it's not perfect. And that little brochure that I passed out, it does, I just want everyone to know, it's not like we started and everyone thought, this is the best thing ever, we love it. No, if you open up this little pamphlet, I told you the students burnt the Constitution. This is what William Lloyd Garrison did. He burnt the Constitution during an anti-slavery rally. Would somebody just be willing to read? I mean, look at that beautiful portrait, and then anybody want to read what William Lloyd Garrison thought about the Constitution? Can I put you on the spot, Michael? He's taking his glasses out, and Allison, you're so great. Thank you very much. A sacred compact.
It was a compact formed at the sacrifice of the bodies and souls of millions of our race for the sake of achieving a political object, an unblushing and monstrous coalition to do evil and that good. An unblushing and monstrous coalition to do evil that good might come.
Can you put it closer to your mouth? Yeah.
Such a compact was, in the nature of things and according to the law of God, null and void from the beginning.
Null and void from the beginning. Many abolitionists felt this way. There was the 3/5 clause, there was the fugitive slave clause, there was so much in the Constitution they just felt it was terrible. And so William Lloyd Garrison burns it, just like those kids at the Putney Public Library. That's what they thought about the Constitution. So, given this strong tradition of dissent that we have in this country, I will now open this up. This is the Garrisonian position. I hope you don't want to burn the whole thing, because otherwise I have to go off and cry. But is there anything in the Constitution that you would like to change? And so I already have, I know, Gemma? What would you like me to put on my list?
Pull up my list.
A list, okay. Can you give me the top two?
I would say that most of my list is actually things I'd like to add to the Constitution.
Oh, okay, that's totally fine.
But beginning with the Equal Rights Amendment.
Okay, so what do you wish to change, remove? I didn't even contemplate this other category, but I'm going to give it a separate color.
I can start with things that I actually do want to change and or remove.
Okay,
Ask people to put the mic closer to the
if you can get the mic up there. We're going to get very personal with our mics.
Yeah, it's I'm not used to mics being this low. They're
Oh, yeah.
usually much louder. First of all, Article 1, Section 2, eligibility for president. It is my position that anyone who has been a naturalized citizen...
Is it Article 1 or Article 2?
Article 2, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yeah, Article 2,
Section 1.
Section.
I got that backwards.
Yeah, that's okay.
And I did write it down.
Yeah,
It's my position that anyone who has been a naturalized citizen for 35 years ought to be eligible for president.
yeah.
Actually, in recent days, I've been thinking more about that, and I'm wondering if it actually shouldn't be 14 years, the same length as which residency within the United States is required, even for natural-born citizens.
Now, you may not be surprised that the Putney Public Library kids, that was their first one they wanted to take out. They ripped it right out.
Actually, I am surprised.
The Article 2, Section 1, you have to be 35 years old to be president. They didn't like it. And here's another suggestion, 14 years residence. And that would be good. And I'm going to get some more ideas out there, and then I'll come back to you. Oh, yeah.
Let me just add one more.
Okay.
And that would be Article 3, Section 1, term limits for judges and justices.
Article 3, Section 1, term limits for SCOTUS.
Yes, specifically, but really for all federal judiciary, because
Oh.
they're all covered by that clause.
Yep. Federal judiciary.
Serving during good behavior.
Yep. I love it. Okay. And if ever anybody says something and then there's been a movement afoot to try and make that be an amendment, both of these, there was a team that came out of the National Constitution Center, a progressive team, a conservative team, and a libertarian team. And they also thought 35 years of age. Well, actually, they thought natural-born citizen in order to be president. They didn't like that. They wanted 14 years residence. So there's actually a movement behind this. This was in 2022. Very high-profile law professors across the political spectrum. They all said this is something we should change. Term limits was something else they all agreed on. Anybody want give me some more? Something you would like to change in the Constitution?
I did have one more.
I know, but I'm going to get other people out there. You and I have a long
I'm
history.
sure someone else will mention this, that's why I'm gonna let it go.
And when they do, you can go,
Yeah.
yeah.
A point of clarification.
Yes, point of clarification.
Sorry, way up here.
Yeah.
What's the difference between residence and citizenship?
If you do not have to be, oh, you probably have to be a citizen, but this would allow Arnold Schwarzenegger to run because he's been in the country for 14 years. So what they're saying is 14 years residence, 35 years citizenship, you could be president.
Arnold's not a citizen?
It's the residency question on that one. So that's why the amendment that's in the hopper right now is focused on residency, because right now, if you are foreign born, you cannot be president of the United States.
No, so I'm sorry, so I'm being stupid.
That's okay. You need a constitution.
I thought at some point you could be a citizen of the United States even though you were foreign born.
We're talking about Article 2, which has everything to do with being a president, and Section 1 is about what are the qualifications to be a president. So that's what we're doing. But you have to be a citizen. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and feel free, especially those of you in the gallery, you want to ask those kind of questions? Love it. What we're trying to do is I'll keep saying, well, maybe you need to read your Constitution. And that's what this whole point is. Nigel, do you have something you'd like to change?
A minor tweak on the second one.
On the second one, yes.
Term limits for all non-elective offices.
Okay, so what are you thinking?
I think there's a quibble there. I don't know how this differs specifically from either the judiciary or SCOTUS, but I think all non-elective offices.
Okay, I got a problem with that. Do you know what it is, Nigel?
Nope.
What article are you going to reference?
I didn't realize we had reference.
Oh, this is hard.
Okay.
This is very hard, people. You can't just say, I don't like this about my country. You have to say, where in the Constitution did it come?
Fair call.
Fair call? So you got to be able to play, and this is why this is my A student over here. I don't ask Gemma to come, but when Gemma comes, I'm like, okay, let's step up the game. If you want to change something in the Constitution, tell me where it is. Or tell me something you think might be there, and we can look for it together. Yes?
Your first one, I want to put an age limit on the age of the president to be elected.
So you want to say, because right now, when we talk about the presidency, you want to say age out. Are you ageist or something? What's your name?
Bob.
Bob. Okay. So you want, like, what's that, Bob? How are we going to determine when we have to throw him out of office?
65, I'd be happy with, maybe 70.
Ooh. Whoa, that's pretty wild. Okay.
That's dangerous.
But Bob, I love it that you're even thinking that way. We do have a kind of tall ratification process, but we'll keep this in mind. Yes, in the back.
Yeah, we already have the 25th Amendment to deal with if a president is out of health reasons or whatever, it must be removed. But I'd like to change the 17th Amendment to have it go back to the way it was, not by popular election of senator, but they used to be picked before the 17th Amendment. They were picked by the Congress or by the
State legislature.
State legislature.
Yeah, and what's your name?
Scott.
Scott, you've already impressed people because you're talking about these amendments with a good deal of specificity. 25th Amendment, does anybody know what that one's about? Who
Wilson had a stroke or whatever it was, and his wife was basically president for a short time.
Who did I give a constitution to? Where's my constitutionalist? Yeah, so what is the 25th Amendment?
In case of the removal
Deb's
of
quick giving it to Howard.
I'm passing it over.
Yeah, okay. Cynthia? No. Elizabeth?
Yeah, sorry, what?
What? Sorry, I gave you the mic and then I started talking.
You did.
Yeah.
But it's okay. Do I read?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
In case of the removal of the president from office or of his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. Whenever there is a vacancy in the office of the vice president, the president shall nominate a vice president who shall take office upon confirmation by a majority vote of both houses of Congress. And Section 3, whenever the president transmits to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that he is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, and until he transmits to them a written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged by the Vice President as acting President.
Thank you for reading that, Elizabeth, because now we understand. And Scott? So Scott, you said we don't have to worry about the age out. So I'm hoping, Bob, that you're going to feel better about things.
Nope.
No. That we already have a 25th Amendment, and the 25th Amendment has some mechanisms. Bob still wants people to be thrown out of office at age 65.
You can't be elected if you're over those ages. 35 is the minimum.
Yeah.
65, 70 should be the maximum.
Yep, I hear you. I got it on the board.
Also, Meg,
Scott.
isn't it true that to change anything within the articles, as opposed to the Bill of Rights, the things that came after it, wouldn't there have to be a constitutional convention? Because that's more serious than changing anything in the articles, as opposed to adding an amendment. You don't need a constitutional convention.
Anytime you're messing with any of these words, tiny little words,
Even just adding an amendment.
we need to go through Article 5. Ooh. And everybody now knows what Article 5 is, because if they open up their brochure and you see it, look in the middle, you should find how is it that we go about, oh, sorry, it's on the back. It's on the back. Article 5 tells us how we can change anything. And it's a big ask. Right now it says, I'm not going to read all the details, just kind of get to the gist of it all. If you want to change things, first of all, you have to find 2/3 from both houses shall deem it necessary to propose amendments. So you start off, this is where Bob's going to have a hard time, because I think he's going to look around the Senate and he's going to say, a lot of these people are over 65, I don't know if I can get their vote. So that's going to be the first practical problem, but I love your vision, Bob. So then it has to, or the application of the legislatures of 2/3, so it doesn't have to go through Congress. All the states, you just need 2/3 are going to say we need to consider this amendment. That's a proposal. And then it goes through this very laborious process where we're going to call conventions to ratify, and that's going to take 3/4 of all the states. It's very hard to amend our Constitution. Maybe that's why it's lasted as long as it has. Although Jill Lepore completely disagrees with me, if you've been following her most recent book. But this is the hardest Constitution to change. It's also the oldest Constitution. I'm not saying those two are related, but it's part of the difficulty is if you want to make some of these changes, there's a big political will that's necessary. Deb?
I just had a question. Madison and Hamilton thought it would be changed a lot and it wouldn't last as long as it has.
So Deb is saying Madison and Hamilton thought there were going to be a lot more changes afoot. And in the very beginning, there was a big push for changes. The first 10 amendments, that's our Bill of Rights. And they thought, okay, people are going to keep wanting that sort of thing. And then there was not many changes until there was a Civil War. After that, we had another big push, 13th, 14th, 15th, come down the pipe. And that had a lot to do with the fact that the Republicans were in charge of that Congress, and they could make those big numbers happen. But here's the reality of living in the United States. We don't really agree with each other. To get those supermajorities is super, super hard. Maybe you would want to change the amending process? Maybe? Does anybody want to say that? That's like, those are pretty high numbers. 2/3, both houses, 3/4 of the states. You could change those numbers, and then it would be easier. That might be something to do. In fact, I'm going to go so far, even though I love everything the way it is, change Article 5, make it easier, and instead of, and this is again, this comes out of the National Constitution Center, the progressive lawyers, the conservative lawyers, the libertarian lawyers, they all agree. 2/3 out of Congress? Make it 3/5. That's a lot easier. And maybe don't do 3/4 of all the states, do 2/3. Under those, ERA would have passed. So if you guys want to get behind my idea to change the amendment process, it could happen. It would have happened. So 3/5, not 2/3, and 2/3, not 3/4. Drop those numbers, and it's a lot easier to amend. Okay. Any other hands up? Otherwise, I'm going to my ink student. Susan.
13th Amendment, please.
You would like to get rid of the 13th
I'd
Amendment?
like to change it to be changed.
Yeah, what would you do?
It reads, slavery is abolished, except in cases as punishment for crime.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to get rid of that.
And that's kind of what state of Vermont did, didn't it? Make some of those changes. So get rid of in case that, or just read, do you want to offer new language right now, or do you want to think about it?
No, slavery is abolished, period.
Okay, and just leave it there. Slavery is abolished. Thank you, Susan. That's you would think that would be easy to fix. But maybe it's not easy to fix because we don't get along and we got these high numbers. Okay, enough here. I want to go over, okay, Gemma, I'm going to let Gemma, yeah, go ahead.
I just have to make one comment.
Yeah.
First of all, the loophole in the 13th Amendment was the thing that I had forgotten before. But.
Oh, so this is, just want you to know, Gemma was hoping you would say that.
Oh, sorry. And the other thing that I would like to point out is that if we talk about changing Article 5 to make the amendment process easier, the first thing that we have to think about is who is actually in control of state legislatures these days. And almost 3/4 of them are in Republican hands. So there's probably not a lot of people in this room who really want that to happen.
That's a very important point. Be careful what you ask for. Changing the Constitution, what would happen? And so let's find out, like maybe we don't want to lose some things. What do you love in the Constitution? Oh, yes.
Fourth Amendment, freedom from unreasonable search and seizure.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Deb. Oh, I have two Debs here. You love the Fourth Amendment because, and tell us why, Deb.
Because it means that cops can't just come into my house willy-nilly. They have to have a search warrant.
Yeah.
Not that there's any reason they would.
Well,
But yeah, I mean.
it's a beautiful amendment, yeah. Right to have. Unreasonable search and seizures. Anything else? Oh, tell me why. Oh, who said that?
The 5 freedoms.
The 5 freedoms in the First Amendment. Susan, I just wrote first Susan. First Amendment. What are the 5 freedoms?
Speech, press, assembly, right to redress of grievances, and religion.
Why is that one so important, Susan?
If it were followed, we would be experiencing a lot of what we're experiencing right now in terms of firings. I mean, that amendment is going to potentially put a stop to what is happening in the aftermath of the assassination.
It's big. It's super big. Some people said, such as Frederick Douglass, you don't have first free speech. I'm going to ask Terry to read a card later. But you don't have free speech, you don't have liberty. So this one is super, super big, along with religion, because we're going to have to live together, which means we're going to have people who have different religions living together, and that's going to be fine. We're not going to tell people how they're supposed to worship or that they have to worship. Press, in order to make sure that people have a chance to say what they want to say. Assembly, then we get to have this. Pretty great. And then big time, petition the government for grievances. Any others? Yeah, Terry. Thanks,
I like the First Amendment, but we've had some debate in a group that I meet weekly with when it comes to the first. The Congress shall make no religion. It's very clear, but it always gets thrown in about Jefferson's letter in Connecticut about the separation of church and state.
Mhm.
I think that's very clear.
Mhm.
But they say, well, it's in the Constitution, oh, it's in the Bill of Rights, well, and then they back off when they say, I say, well, it's Congress is talking, shall make no religion.
Congress shall make no law that abridges respecting the freedom of a religion.
That's right, freedom of there, or abridging the freedom of speech. So there still is, I don't think we need to modify that, say, but it doesn't mean separation of church and state.
Yeah, and that's not in the Constitution, separation of church and
Right.
state. And if you look at state constitutions, a lot of those state constitutions all had religion. In Vermont, you had to be a Protestant in order to get office.
Well, the first 13 constitution in our nation all had Christianity in it.
They all had religious requirements.
Yes.
So the states always had put those two together. But Congress could not get into that game.
Right.
Yeah. And there was a hand in the back. Yes, and you had answered that question.
This might seem kind of strange to some people, but, oops, sorry.
Yeah.
I think the preamble, maybe, it's what I would call a mission statement for government. And also, it clears up some, I think, some arguments where there's certain people on the right that say that providing for schools or providing for different services the government, that should not be in the Constitution. That should be, because that's socialism or what have you. But what did our forefathers think about it?
Do you want to read the preamble?
Yeah.
It's right there. Yeah, it's right there on your back of your program.
We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Yeah. And that language, thank you for reading that, and I'm sorry I forgot your name. What's your name?
Steve Farrington.
Steve. I don't know if I know it. Steve, the preamble says that we have something called a general welfare. Now, we may all think, oh, back in the day they all got along. This is not that long after the revolution. Tarring and feathering is a very unpleasant thing to go through, and neighbors were doing that to one another. So it's not as if it was all, aren't we a lovely group of people? The royalists, I'm sorry, maybe we call them the loyalists, were still around. So it's not as if they got rid of all the people that they didn't like anymore. Sometimes nowadays people act like, oh, I'll just live with the people who all agree with me and I won't deal with the other side. But at that time, they had this idea there was a general welfare. In fact, you can only have a general welfare if it's got everybody in it. You're going to have a common defense. It only means something if it's common to all. You're going to have domestic tranquility. They are making up a picture in their heads. It is not what it was looking like on the ground. Shays' Rebellion, I mean, this is a bloody country. And people, when they don't get along, they don't sing Sly and the Family Stone, they pick up a musket. Or whatever yeah, Scott.
I was going to say, providing for the general welfare, that clause does not mean that the government has to hand out welfare in the form of checks.
No, but it's just saying, like, we're going to create the conditions where everybody's welfare, people can thrive. It's a pretty high level of saying, like, we can do this. And then what happens next? Then they say, we're going to separate the powers. We're going to have a federalist system. We're going to say that Congress can do this and can't do that. But then I did put in my little pamphlet, because I think it's so fascinating. Article 2 actually gives a lot of power to the executive. And this may be something where some people may say, well, we need an amendment. Because, wow, that's a lot of power. Yes, Lisa.
I want to go back to the preamble.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just think more perfect
Yeah.
are golden words, because the assumption is it is not perfect, and it will never be perfect, and it will always try to be a little bit more perfect,
Right.
and we never get there. It's like an infinite regress.
Yeah.
Progress.
Yeah, it's because we're not going to all agree, and we're going to have this type of government that gives us lots of places where we can agree. So the whole point is not agreeing, but not agreeing and not shooting each other. It's really being clear where we don't like what's happening. Article 1 powers are all about deliberation. Because this is where all our representatives come together and they deliberate. Article 2 powers, I don't want to go into all the details now, but they're pretty large that are given to the executive branch. And then Article 3 is supposed to be there, the judiciary looking at both of them. Steve?
In regard to what the lady said about more perfect union, would it be fair to say that the framers, realizing that they could not necessarily embrace everything that might be possible to put in the Constitution, wrote it enough specific but also vague enough that it could be later interpreted. But also they had the vision that possibly that the country would go on and evolve. And that way, the implication of more perfect union would be that in its evolution, it would perhaps change and grow and adapt to the needs of the people of a given particular period. I think even Jefferson referred to, even though he was at Council Conventions, on his monument about change, and which a lot of people did not necessarily accept at first.
And so that's a big question now, because we have a constitution which is very hard to change, and we may want to change it so that it's easier to change. However, if we make it too easy to change, what if we lose some of the things over here? Gemma's point is absolutely right. You make it too easy to change, like state constitutions, you can change them all the time. It's very, very easy. But what would happen if there was a mass movement and people wanted to get rid of freedom of speech? And then what would happen to freedom of speech if people wanted to get rid of it? Now, I would like to tell you that there would be a massive uproar, although I am going to suggest maybe this is a good time, not a terrible time. But I was saying to Allison when I came down, oh, should I talk about these sad statistics around freedom of speech? It turns out that many, many people feel that speech is not as effective as violence. And the statistics are not good. Right now, a recent one is 1 in 5. That it's better to use violence than to try and persuade your opponent. I heard one statistic, and this was in the beginning of the summer, that 40% of Democrats feel that it would be fine to use violence to remove Trump from office. That's a very high number. And I want to get like really look at that. Like, what did that survey? Were they having a bad day? I don't know, maybe they just needed to go outside and not do that. But when they did a random survey, that was a very high number. 25% of Republicans felt it was okay to use violence if there were protests against Trump. That's not a good mix. So here's the one I just got. This is very recent. FIRE, which is an organization that works for First Amendment rights, and I give them a lot of credit because they work for everybody. So under the Biden administration, when when colleges were coming down about cancel culture, FIRE was there to help people out. Now under Trump, they are super busy. Again, same thing around protecting First Amendment rights. But here's what their survey found, and this is very recent. This is for college students. They interviewed or did a survey with 68,510 college students. 1 in 3 felt that some level of violence was fine to use to stop a speaker. So the heckler's veto. If you don't want to hear somebody on campus, 1 in 3 of the college students felt that it was fine to stop the proceeding.
Can I ask clarification on
Yes,
that? Because you're
Deb.
saying heckler's veto, which is different from violence. If they're just saying boo, that's freedom of speech in return.
If you are actually stopping the speech from happening, that is considered violence. In the sense of they're doing what they can to make sure that it doesn't go forward. And I don't want to fall into the trap of saying, is that a criminal offense? Absolutely not. Unless you've broken some actual law in the means. But this idea that you can do whatever it takes, and if that includes violence, because that's how the question was framed, can you use violence to stop something from happening?
I think that's very interesting that whoever framed that
Yeah.
considers heckling to the point of stopping, speech that you disagree with would be considered violence. That's
And I should say more like at Middlebury College, so it started with heckling, then the people left, and then the thing was shut down. And if you were a defense attorney, then you would say, no, they weren't breaking any rules or something of that sort. But it did quickly come to the political scientists getting pushed into a car and having, so there was some assaults that took place. And that's what I'm talking about. I shouldn't just say heckler's veto, but moving it to the point where it becomes aggressive. And 1 in 3 college students felt that was fine. And in 2022, it was 1 in 5. 54% of college students feel that blocking other students from hearing a speaker is fine. And 71% feel that heckler's veto, shutting down with speech, is fine. 71%. Shut it down. Yeah. Can you remind me your name?
MD.
MD.
There's a line there, as you were saying too, between physical violence and making noise.
Yeah.
And if you're stopping things from happening with your voice, that's literally freedom of speech as well. And if somebody is just louder than another, then who is there? How many people from each side? But I don't think that's a bad thing if someone can outshout another one. Granted, I don't want to be on the receiving end and get shut down myself.
Interesting.
But this is what gets people out and together.
Yeah.
At least to be able to speak up.
So here's an argument that's saying this is okay, this is politics.
No physical violence.
No physical violence, shouting down speakers. And so I'm really appreciating no one's shouting me down right now. Because you could. Yeah.
I would suggest that's what debates are for.
The debates are for
discourse between experienced people whose credibility that you know,
yeah.
who you at least appreciate. You might not understand, but you at least appreciate. And you go to hear them. I mean, if I were going to go to, say, your presentation, and somebody in this audience who I have no idea who they are, what their credibility is, or reference to, was shouting you down, I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
Because I've come to hear you.
And that's generally what...
If I were coming to a debate, I'd be coming to hear a debate from different points of view on a specific topic, which is kind of what the shouting down might be considered. But to me, it's more of an educational, known basis of two people discussing something who I at least know where they come from.
And I would just want to say that I think a debate allows for that really robust going back and forth. And there's a lot to be gained from that. And I also like a combative audience. Totally fine with that. I'm sad and dismayed that the idea that you can have an event like this and 71% of the people feel like if I get shouted down, it's fine. And that's a shift. That's a big shift. So if the whole point of the Constitution is to give the people a sense of what they can say in order to tell the government, you can't do this, but the people themselves do not believe in freedom of speech, that's when it's not going to be very good. Because why do we have a Constitution? The whole reason, and this is from Tom Ginsburg, who's a law professor at University of Chicago, and he's the one who I got that, what's the lifespan of a Constitution? He does comparative research on constitutions. And his argument is that why do we even have a Constitution, and why is it that we stay with it? It's because it is a focal point for citizens who all think differently can at least wrap their brains around this language. So constitutions help citizens coordinate their efforts to control government. In order to control government, that means citizens have to really understand what free speech is. And if free speech becomes, I get to yell at you and you get to yell at me and we just get to get really loud and not hear each other, I don't understand that to be free speech. I don't think it should be criminalized, so I want to be careful. And MD, I'm like kind of looking because do you want to say any more about the advantage of shouting down? Because it's an important argument and I don't want to shut it away.
It's a line.
It's a
There are
line.
points along that line.
Yeah.
And of course, I want my views to be heard. And if someone is hate mongering, which can come from anywhere, then that's not right. But who decides what that is and when?
Right.
Yeah.
Who decides?
Who decides?
That's exactly the question. Yeah, absolutely. Terry, did you want to jump in?
Well, we're gathered here tonight to hear Meg talk. What if somebody chose to walk into the library tonight and start screaming and trying to shout her down everything she was trying to say? I wonder how we would feel about that.
Yeah.
We might shout that person down.
Oh, and then we could have more shouting. So Deb says we could go shouting to shouting. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody who hasn't spoken yet, want to just jump into this? Steve Minkham. Did I pronounce the last name? Not quite right.
Am I on? Yes. The one thing that doesn't add up for me in this particular discussion is, do all people have the same access to speech, to the airways and so on? If I'm in an audience and the powers that be control the platform, control the debate and so on, and I want to say it's genocide, and I'm not allowed to say that because I'll be shouted down, you know, in let's say a debate over what's happening in Palestine, for example. So there's also a question of power within these relationships. So as a political scientist, I think you really have to kind of consider what is the relationship of speech, talking to power, talking against power. I mean, this is, it may be very easy for Donald Trump, for example, to pull people out of a crowd because they're trying to, you know, and say rough them up or whatever as well. So I think we have to also consider the power dynamics within the discussion of free speech.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody hear Steve? Like, we should be thinking about who has the power to speak and who has access to speech and all that. What about this idea, though, that the Constitution is what helps us coordinate our efforts to push back on the government? And that it's actually all of us being on the same page, enough about free speech, that we can say something to what the government is doing. Scott?
This all goes to why the founders decided that we should be a republic, not a democracy, because in a republic where the individual has rights, but in a democracy, which literally means majority rule or mob rule,
right.
They said, well, we should have a bulwark, a wall of separation between what the public, even if the public, because the public might be wrong, and 90% of people would be wrong. And, you know, let's do away with all free speech except Rush Limbaugh's, you know, and if the Republicans were in power, then that would go through, but that's wrong. So they said we should be a republic, not democracy.
Right.
That word gets overused way too much because it literally means mob rule. If we were a democracy, we wouldn't have a Congress. We would just have to go by the majority of what people want at any particular time, and that, of course, can change.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we had shouting matches just this week amongst the Congress critters and some of our appointed officials.
And so Congress, they can yell at each other, but the rest of us might be saying, can you go back to work and do what you're supposed to do and like solve some problems? And going with what Scott says, if you have majority rule, you could get rid of the First Amendment. You could get rid of free speech. So I'm noticing how things I used to hear in graduate school coming from the left, I'm now hearing from the current administration. And that is that hate speech is not protected under free speech. That's what I heard in the 90s in grad school. And the feminists were really pushing this in their anti-pornography effort. And at that time, it felt like, oh, kind of sexy idea. Let us shut down the patriarchy. This is the way we're going to do it. And Catherine McKinnon, I had quite a crush on Catherine McKinnon. So I liked her, and her hairdo and the way she used the law, it was very attractive, I thought. However, this idea that hate speech, if you could accuse somebody of hate speech and then you feel like you could shout them down, I think we're running into free speech issues. And maybe it's a wonderful thing that now the Attorney General is sounding like a radical feminist of the 90s. Because maybe that gets the rest of us to kind of back out from the whole thing and go, ooh, it's the Punch and Judy show up there. And what do we think? Like, isn't there another way we could go about this? As opposed to just immediately saying, we're going to find ways to criminalize speech. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Michael. Allison, this is great. You've been doing that circuit exercise in the morning. Yeah.
I don't think there's actually a question here, but to come back to the Constitution, and some of the discussions about the First Amendment have sort of skidded around this. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say anybody has speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly. No individual isn't mentioned at all. What it says specifically is these are the constraints on what the government can do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where the subtlety is between that is different, but this is the point I've heard people make, and I guess I'm asking sort of for comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stop.
Yeah, and that's the big question, isn't it? Congress shall make no law. So it sounds like the First Amendment is just constraining Congress. But then where is the enforcement mechanism? The enforcement mechanism is all of us, who read the Constitution and say, you can't do that. And then the 14th Amendment gets passed, and many of these are then applied to the state. So it's not just Congress, no governments. You can't start talking in such a way that you can try and put people in jail for something they said. So this is like, we have all got to be very clear, no, you can't do that, and not fall into the trap. Put the people in jail I don't agree with. Ban the books I don't want to see in the library. It's a whole problem. You can see the splinter in your brother's eye, but there's a wooden beam in your own eye. And somehow we have to get out of that trap, because then all of us could be saying, I didn't like it when Catherine McKinnon said it, and I don't like it when Pam Bondi says it. I just don't like that line. Don't do it. It's against the First Amendment. Steve.
Along with this, my current understanding of the Supreme Court's analysis of free speech is that money is free speech. How does that fit into the Founding Fathers' interpretation of the First Amendment?
Okay, are you talking about Citizens United?
Yes.
All right, and so I'm going to put you on the spot, Steve.
All right.
This is where I'm like, oh God, she really was a college professor.
Allison, protect me, please.
So what was the legal question in Citizens United? What was the constitutional question in Citizens United? Because that's all the Supreme Court does. They do not get into politics, even though the press is not helping us, and they're getting even worse. I'm so mad at the press. What does the Supreme Court do? It answers a legal question. And what was the legal question in Citizens United?
Would that have to do with the control of the amount of attempts to control the amount of money or the provision of money within the political discourse?
That's how it gets represented oftentimes,
Right.
like about money in politics.
Right.
And how do you control money in politics? Is it Connie?
Yeah.
A corporation is a person?
And so Connie's wondering, does it have to do with, is a corporation a person? A corporation is a person, and that's an older, much older case law, comes out of Santa Clara. So that's an old idea, and it has to do with the notion of how do you minimize liability. You can't have all employees, I'm pointing to my body like I'm the corporation. You say that they are a person in the sense of a legal fiction, and it's a way of distributing liability. But Citizens United was actually a free speech case.
We have a hand up over here.
Oh,
Yes, Deb.
did it have
Did it have to do with, I didn't read it, but did it have to do with whether political action companies, corporations can spend unlimited money?
It certainly had those implications. It started to get into policy, so that's absolutely right. But the big question was, can you restrict speech? And I don't want to get into too many details. If you're somebody who's pretty excited by the First Amendment and you want this freedom, and your biggest fear, okay, I'm much more of a libertarian maybe than you knew, your biggest fear is that the government is going to prosecute certain people because of their political beliefs, then there's a lot in Citizens United I'm fine with. That, because it had to do with protecting free speech.
Why can't they fire them?
So Lynn is wondering, like, what about firing somebody because of free speech? That's going to be, first of all, I think that the current administration is giving the plaintiff's attorney in a wrongful termination suit great evidence to bring to trial. Right? And I'm seeing that again and again. If you're looking to bring some of your constitutional rights against the current administration, all you need to do is look at social media or look at what's happening on Fox News, and that's exactly the information you need to say that this was a violation of the First Amendment. That's kind of interesting. I don't know what's going on that level. But if the people say, hey, you can't say that, that's great evidence. As opposed to feeling, what?
What did they say that gave the evidence?
So when a government official says, we are taking out anybody who says something that we feel to be disrespectful to the late Charlie Kirk, then that's evidence of a type of repression of speech. But you don't have a right to employment. So if there's something else for cause, people can get fired. People can get fired. And that's going to be a hard one just to say, I got fired for this and not something else. But if I were trying to play the smart rule, I would not be saying all the stuff that's being said. And then the people can be like, that is not okay. That is not going to fly well. And unlike my dear friend Steve Minkin, I actually think this particular Supreme Court is very strong on free speech protections. And I'd be happy to, go into details at another time, but this is something they have reliably been protecting. And they're not compelling people to engage in speech. So anyway, I'm pretty happy with the federal judiciary, but I'm really concerned about the American people if you don't take free speech seriously. And if it's considered like, I don't like these people. They really should be taken out. I don't want to hear them. I really don't want them to have any access to the airwaves. Some people are saying hateful things. I think they should not have a chance to say them. And people say hateful things all the time. I think we'd be better off to say, I don't like what you're saying, but I love the First Amendment. Maybe could you explain me the reasons behind why you're saying what you're saying? I want to try and understand you. And maybe then I could say, this is how it affects me, but I'm glad you had the right to say it. And if nobody says, I don't think you should have the right to say it, that's when we don't have our, what did he call it? Our ability to coordinate. So we're starting to run out of time. I just want to make this plug. This could be a wonderful time because the current administration is saying things that are very troubling and for free speech reasons. And I think there's many people on the right who are concerned about that. And I don't agree with a lot that Charlie Kirk said, but he was a First Amendment, and there's a lot you can find online where he's like, we need to talk. I'm going to piss you off. And I like doing that. I like owning the libs. It's so much fun. But it's got to be at that level of like, we all care about the First Amendment. So figuring out ways to make common cause right now, I think the First Amendment could be a good one to operate on. You don't have to agree on much for the First Amendment. That's pretty great. Just agree that you get the chance to say it.
So Mayor, are you saying that Citizens United was a First Amendment case? Is
Yes.
that right? So basically, so money is speech in that case?
It means that if you have money,
If you
like the
could-
New York Times,
Yeah.
if the New York Times wishes to spend a lot of money in order to endorse a certain candidate, they cannot get sued for a violation of a federal crime. And that's what, if Citizens United had gone the other way, then yes, you can get defamation lawsuits, but you could, as you were a press, spending a lot of money on a single candidate, that could have gotten you into trouble. So the minute you start to make the laws easier to stop certain people, those laws could stop you. It's going back to Gemma's point. If we were to make it easier to amend, you could lose something over here.
Long before Citizens United, you needed money to take your court case that you were denied. In order to take it to a higher court, which is the Supreme Court, you still needed money, or somebody with money to back you. It was always the case. And Black's Law's dictionary for many years has defined the word person as being, among other things, a corporation, or vice versa.
Blackstone's legal dictionary. Yeah, this is old tort law, I think. I mean, it goes way back. Yeah, I don't know, the first part I couldn't quite catch, but,
If your court case,
oh yeah, thank you. So Scott, what I'm hearing you saying is that money is always going to be part of this.
Dred Scott did not have the money to take his case to the Supreme Court. Somebody backed him, and he lost nonetheless. It was declared right that he was made a slave just because of the color of his skin, and so the Supreme Court is not the end-all, say-all of a case.
Yeah, I completely agree. I am the Supreme Court has made terrible, terrible decisions, and Dred Scott is probably way up there. And there's a few others that are just like, what are you thinking? And then we have the 14th Amendment to overdo Dred Scott. So that was our way of redeeming it. But I wouldn't put Citizens United in the same category as Dred Scott, because I like free speech a lot. Any other thoughts? Do we need to sing more Sly and the Family Stone?
Where do the rights come from?
What?
Where do the rights come from?
Where do the rights come from? Thomas Jefferson said they're endowed by our Creator. And they're self-evident, so they're reasonable.
Not the legislature.
Not the legislature. And Scott's point is super important. We have these rights. We have this Constitution. We use the language in the Constitution to say to the government, We let our people have different ways of thinking about things. We let our neighbors have radically different ideas than we do. Worship radically different gods, or no God at all. But when we have the Constitution, we look at the words and we look at the government and then we say, nope. But we got to coordinate ourselves, people. And not have this idea that we can't live together. Anyway. So maybe I'll end on that. And thank you very much. And I'll do this in case anybody needs to go, and I can stick around for some questions. If people want to stay for some more questions. Oh, we didn't get to read Frederick Douglass. Dang. Take it back. Frederick Douglass and free speech. I highly recommend Frederick Douglass's plea to free speech. If you want to stick around and hear just a little of it, it's beautiful. You want to hear that? Yeah. Okay. So I gave this to Terry. Allison, can we just keep the mic going for Frederick Douglass? And maybe just to set the stage, can I ask you to read too? Frederick Douglass was giving a speech in Boston. I think it's 1854. No, it's 1860. It's 1860. Thank you.
1860.
And he's a mob comes in and does the heckling. Abolitionist speech in Boston, 1860. Nobody wants to hear it, and it's a very well-dressed mob. Getting to your money issue, it's all the gentlemen come in. They heckle him, and he has to leave. So Terry, what does he say?
The preamble to that. For you who grew up around Brattleboro, there was the auditorium called the Memorial Auditorium with the police department and the town office was. It got torn down. It's now I think it's Key Bank where that's located. Frederick Douglass came to Brattleboro and spoke there. We had a lot of the different people of the culture coming to Brattleboro and speaking, and as they came north and headed to Canada, they would stop at the auditorium and put on their various programs and plays and stuff. So Frederick Douglass, I feel, he resolved racism way back then. Very highly acclaimed, knowledgeable man. So I'm going to read this about Frederick Douglass from 1860 in Boston. No right was deemed by the fathers of the government more sacred than the right of speech. It was in their eyes the great moral renovator of society and government. Liberty is meaningless where the right to utter one's thoughts and opinions has ceased to exist.
That's it. Yeah, and I've got two other cards out there. Can you pass it right behind you to Angie? Yeah. Another. This is from A Plea for Free Speech.
The world knows that the meeting was invaded, insulted, captured by a mob of gentlemen, and thereafter broken up and dispersed by the order of the mayor, who refused to protect it, though called upon to do so.
Yeah. So the mayor is told what's going on. You got to protect our free speech. Nope, nothing happens. MD.
That of all rights is the dread of tyrants. Thrones, dominions, principalities, and powers founded in injustice and wrong are sure to tremble if men are allowed to reason of righteous temperance and judgment to come in their presence.
You have free speech, he says, and the tyrants are going to run. You have free speech, and nobody can control through tyranny. If we don't have free speech, we're just going to get divided and say this group should be thrown out or that group should be thrown out. So it's going to ask a lot of us, and the Constitution is on our side, and we got a good history. So, thanks.
And speaking of history, Sly Stone performed on Flat Street on June 20th, 1982. And I have a picture of the crowd waiting to get in. Some of you may see yourself.
you.